Welcome back to another Sunday School Bible class. This week's lesson is entitled The Red Sea. In our last lesson, we had learned that although God had sent 9 previous terrible plagues on Egypt, Pharaoh stubbornly refused to obey God's command to let the Hebrews go free, so God warned of his last plague, which would be the worst of all. Both Hebrew and Egyptian were told they could protect themselves from this plague by applying the blood of the lamb on their doorpost and lintel. All that believed and obeyed were protected. However, the firstborn male in every home of those who did not believe died, even in Pharaoh's house. The Hebrews were commanded to eat a special meal that night and every year thereafter to remember this great night of deliverance. The next day, Pharaoh called for Moses and told him to take the Hebrews and get out. The Israelites were now free and on their way to the promised land, that is the land that God had promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, which they had never seen before because they were in Egypt for 400 years. In today's lesson, we're going to find out what happened when they left Egypt. The Israelites came out of Egypt numbering over 1 million. They saw a visible presence of God as he led them through the wilderness using a moving pillar or column of a cloud which would turn into fire at night. Stopping, camping, and resuming their journey was all based on the moving of this pillar of cloud as God led them. When God led the camp in front of the sea with mountains on either side of them, although it looked like a dead end, he was about to show them a great miracle of deliverance. Meanwhile, back in Egypt, Pharaoh's heart was hardened again, and he took his army to pursue, capture, and bring back the Hebrews as slaves. When the Israelites saw Pharaoh's army coming after them and knew they were trapped, they totally forgot about all the miracles God had done for them in Egypt and began to accuse Moses of leading them to their death. God put a pillar of fire between the Israelites and the Egyptians so that the Egyptians could not come near the Israelites. Then God told Moses to stretch out his rod over the sea, and when he did, God divided the sea in half and made the water to stand up like a wall on either side, making a dry path for the Israelites to walk right through the middle of the sea. When the Israelites got to the other side safely, God removed the pillar of fire from between the Egyptians and the Israelites, and the Egyptians went into the sea after them. God looked at what the Egyptians were doing and knew that they had not repented of their stubborn unbelief. God made their chariot wheels come off and then told Moses to stretch out his rod over the sea again, which caused the sea to close, drowning all the Egyptians in the sea. Thus God showed over 1 million Israelites how he can provide and protect them from anything or anyone. The Egyptians and Pharaoh never bothered Moses or the Israelites again. Led by Miriam, praised the Lord with timbrels, which are like tambourines, and dances. 3 days later, as they journeyed through the wilderness, they came to a place with bitter water. They complained to Moses, accusing him again of trying to kill them. Moses prayed, and God told him to cast a tree in the water, and the waters were made sweet. A few weeks later, they accused Moses of trying to kill them with hunger. God told Moses he would send quails, which are like birds, for the Israelites to eat every night, and he would rain bread at night for the morning. When they saw the bread in the morning, which tasted like honey, they called it manna because they did not know what it was. Yet there was enough for over 1 million people every morning. God would continue to provide this manna for every day that they were in the wilderness. Then they journeyed to another place and found no water, and again complained to Moses. God told Moses to strike the rock with his staff, and miraculously water flowed out of the rock to supply over 1 million people and their animals all the water they needed. God continued to lead them through the wilderness to test them to see if they would learn the lesson of faith and trust. Despite all the miracles that God performed for all of these people, they never seemed to learn the lesson that God can do anything and take care of any situation. In our next lesson, we're going to find out what happens when the Israelites come to a certain mountain and God gives his law to Moses. Have you ever heard of the 10 Commandments? In our upcoming lesson, we're going to learn the 10 Commandments and what each one of them means. You don't want to miss the next lesson. See you next time. Bye-bye.